All right, good afternoon and welcome. My name is Nikita. We appreciate you attending our webinar today to discuss the 990PF form. If you have questions during the presentation, you can add them to the chat. We're going to have a few opportunities for live Q&A throughout the presentation. We do want to mention we're not tax advisors. We will not be providing specific tax advice. We will purely be discussing IRS e-filing requirements and the process of e-filing. For specific tax questions, please contact a tax preparer, an accountant, or the IRS. This presentation will be recorded and available at tax990.com. We will also send a follow-up email with a link to the recording so you can have it to review at any time. During the webinar today, we're going to discuss filing requirements for the 990PF, the difference between an operating and non-operating private foundation, how Schedule B relates to the 990PF, common errors we see from clients that file the 990PF, how to file with an IRS authorized e-file provider, and as mentioned, we'll do a live Q&A. So we'll go ahead and get started by talking about the 990PF filing requirements. Organizations that obtain 501c3 tax-exempt status and are classified as private foundations must file the 990PF return of private foundations annually to report their foundation's revenue, expenses, assets, liabilities, compensation details, activities, and etc. to the IRS. Failure to file for 3 consecutive years may result in penalties or revocation of the exempt status by the IRS. Private foundations that generate $1,000 or more from unrelated businesses may also be required to file Form 990T. Schedule B is often required on the 990PF form to allow the private foundation to provide information on contributors, and we'll talk more about Schedule B here in a little bit. The 990PF return is also used by 4947A1 trusts treated as private foundations. If an organization is recognized as a private foundation, as indicated on its determination letter, the organization only has one form option. The 990PF will be required regardless of the organization's financial status. Private foundations are organizations that are formed in order to further their exempt purpose and receive the majority of their support from a single major source, such as an individual, family, or group. Generally, private foundations primarily make donations to other charitable organizations and individuals rather than directly participating in charitable activities. As mentioned, your IRS determination letter will clearly indicate whether your organization is considered a private foundation, as well as whether your organization is an operating or non-operating private foundation. If the determination letter does not indicate that your organization is considered a non-operating private foundation, then it's considered an operating private foundation. But we'll talk more about the difference between those two options here in a few minutes. The IRS has established certain requirements and restrictions on private foundations. Self-dealing between private foundations and their substantial contributors and other disqualified persons is strictly prohibited. A private foundation must distribute the income annually for charitable purposes, and the expenses must further the exempt purpose. Holdings in private businesses are limited, and the investments must not jeopardize the conduct of the exempt purpose. I'm not sure if others are hearing background music. I don't have anything on in the background, so please let me know if you are hearing something in the background. I got one comment here requesting we turn off the background music, and I don't have anything going on. So please, if others are hearing that, please let me know. I'm going to go ahead and proceed anyways. So to file Form 990-PF, you'll need basic information like the organization's name, EIN, and tax year. This information can all be found in the IRS determination letter. You'll also need principal officer information, including name and address. As you work through the return, you'll be asked to complete parts pertaining to revenue and expenses, net assets and liabilities, capital gains and losses for tax on investment income, charitable activities, program-related investments, and information about officers, directors, and trustees. Every private foundation that files Form 990-PF is required to make its annual returns, including all schedules, statements, attachments, and amendments available for public inspection. If the organization files a 990-T return, it should also be made available for public inspection. Per IRS guidelines, in addition to the annually filed returns, a private foundation is also required to make documents proving the foundation's exempt status and application available for public inspection. This can be done by posting information on a website that the organization manages. The organization should report the website URL on their annual 990-PF return. If your organization does not have a website, there is an option on the 990-PF return to indicate how you make that information available for public inspection, whether it's on request or other forms of availability. So there's your organization can either be a public charity or a private foundation. The major difference between public charities and private foundations is their source of funding. Public charities receive contributions primarily from the public, whereas private foundations receive the majority of their contributions from any single private source. Organizations that need to obtain 501c3 private foundation status must file Form 1023, Application for Recognition of Exemption, under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. If the organization's gross receipts are less than $5,000, they can choose to file Form 1023-EZ based on their answers on the eligibility worksheet. Any organization that obtain 501c3 tax-exempt status are automatically classified as a private foundation unless they meet any of the criteria of public charities, or they voluntarily apply for public charity status on Form 1023 Part X. A public charity chooses the annual form to file based on its financial status throughout the tax year. And a private foundation, as mentioned, must file the 990-PF regardless of the financial status throughout the tax year. If you're a public charity and you filed a 990-PF, the return will likely be rejected, and vice versa. If you're a private foundation and you file any of the other 990 series forms besides the 990-PF, your return will be rejected. You can apply for 501c3 private foundation status by registering for an account on pay.gov and completing the 1023 form. You'll receive a determination letter in the mail from the IRS once the status is approved. As mentioned, you'll want to reference your determination letter, as that is what will clearly indicate if your organization is considered a private foundation. If it does not say private foundation or 990-PF anywhere on your determination letter, then you're likely a public charity. Now, if you take a look at your determination letter and you don't see public charity either, it will say that your organization can file the 990N, 990EZ, or 990 form. That would indicate that you are not a private foundation. So it's very important that you take a look at your determination letter prior to filing and choose the correct tax form. Now, if you're a private foundation, you're either going to be an operating or a non-operating private foundation. And I know that seems very confusing, but we get so many rejection errors come through because the operating was chosen when the organization is considered a non-operating private foundation. Now, non-operating does not mean that your organization doesn't operate. We're going to talk a little bit more about the difference of those two things, but again, you want to be very clear when you complete your form that you're matching what's on your determination letter. So a private non-operating foundation is a foundation that grants money and distributes funds to other charitable organizations rather than working on their own. These foundations contribute money for charitable purposes and make up most of the private foundation community. They're also referred to as grant-making foundations by the IRS, since these foundations are neither exempt operating foundations nor private operating foundations. They're eligible to conduct their charitable activities, award scholarships, and make grants to individuals and international organizations that aren't recognized as 501c3 charities. So as I mentioned, majority of private foundations are private non-operating foundations. That is what makes up the majority of those 990 PF filers. A private operating foundation is an organization that allocates the majority of their resources to carry out exempt activities. Private operating foundations qualify as exempt operating foundations if they meet the following conditions. They receive public support for at least 10 tax years, or was a private operating foundation on January 1st, 1983, and consists of fewer than 25% of disqualified individuals in its governing body at all times during the tax year, and they're broadly representative of the general public. If you're unsure whether your organization is an operating or non-operating private foundation, you can reference your determination letter or contact the IRS. If you indicate the incorrect one on your 990 PF form, two things will happen. One, you'll have to complete a significant amount of additional information that might not make sense to the person completing the form because it doesn't qualify for your organization. And two, the form will likely be rejected because the IRS doesn't have you listed as what was stated on the form. If you're not sure, if you have a copy of your determination letter and you're struggling to figure it out, you can give us a call or send us an email with a screenshot, and we'd be happy to help take a look at your determination letter to determine which option you would need to choose when completing that form. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about Schedule B. Most all 990 PF filers have to complete Schedule B. Schedule B is the only schedule that's associated with the 990 PF form. Some of the other forms that a public charity would file have a significant amount of schedule options, whereas the 990 PF only has Schedule B. So Schedule B is used in conjunction with the 990 PF form to report contributions over $5,000 from a single contributor. If you're not required to complete Schedule B, you can indicate this information on page 1 of the 990 PF. You may not be required to complete Schedule B if you didn't have a single contributor that gave over $5,000. So if you have multiple contributors that gave amounts less than $5,000, this would not be reported on Schedule B. If you have multiple contributors who gave $5,000 or more, you can list each individual contributor on Schedule B. You'll be asked to provide the contributor name, address, the contribution amount, the contribution type, whether it's cash, payroll, or non-cash. A cash contribution may be a check or physical money or other direct monetary payments. A payroll contribution is like a direct deduction from the contributor's salary. And a non-cash contribution could be in the form of an item, supplies, time, etc. that is unable to be deposited into a bank account and has a $5,000 or more value. So a lot of times people get hung up on the cash or payroll. So if, I'm sure some of you have heard like a payroll deduct contribution, if you choose to have money taken directly out of your paycheck and go directly to a contribution of some sort, and you never see it between point A and point B, that could be considered a payroll contribution. A cash contribution, as I mentioned, is something in the form of a check, physical money, any kind of monetary amount given to you, and then a non-cash would be anything that has a worth of that $5,000 or more, but is not a cash value. As I mentioned, a lot of times people get confused as well on the $5,000 or more situation. So if your organization has a total of $10,000 in contributions throughout the year, and not a single one of those contributions was given by an individual, and it was over $5,000. So if everybody gave $2,000 and it equaled a total amount of $10,000, that would not be reported on Schedule B. Schedule B is only used for an amount over $5,000 from an individual contributor. If you have multiple contributors that gave over $5,000, you'd list each one of them on Schedule B. But if you also have multiple contributors that gave less than $5,000, you would not list those. I'm sorry, Daniel, you are right. It is $5,000 or more. So if they gave exactly $5,000 or an amount equal to $5,000, it would be reported on Schedule B. So it's $5,000 or more. With the 990PF and the 990T, these are the only two forms that may have taxes due to the IRS after completing the return. So if you have fees due to the IRS, you'll be notified of the amount owed once you complete the return. While Tax 990 does not support the option to pay fees due directly from your Tax 990 account, when you file with Tax 990, you will be able to indicate on the 990PF prior to transmitting on how you intend to pay fees due. The IRS will accept 990PF fees due through EFTPS, which is Electronic Federal Tax Payment System, or EFW, which is Electronic Funds Withdrawal. When you make a selection on how you intend to pay the IRS, you'll be responsible for following through with the process and making the payment via the chosen payment method. For more information, you'll need to visit irs.gov on the payment process. Please keep in mind, if you have fees due to the IRS and you don't follow through and make those payments, you may accrue penalties associated with that. So in addition to the fees due, you would likely have penalties on top of that. So it's incredibly important that after you transmit your return, you follow up and pay any taxes due. So to pay taxes through EFTPS, it's your responsibility to visit their portal at eftps.gov to make the payment. Typically, payments made through EFTPS should generally be made 1 day before the tax payment due date for the transactions to happen on time. But as I mentioned, for more information about EFTPS or to enroll in EFTPS, you'll need to visit their website at eftps.gov. To pay taxes through electronic funds withdrawal, you would provide your checking or savings account information for the IRS to withdraw money from your account based on the payment request date you choose. Okay, so we'll have a short Q&A. I do want to remind everybody we are not tax advisors. We cannot give specific tax advice or reporting information. We can't tell you specifically what or where to report your information. If you have questions specific to your Tax 990 account, please send us an email so we can look at the account with you instead of doing it live here on the webinar. But go ahead, if you have questions related to the information we've just discussed, go ahead and post them in the chat. We'll give it a couple minutes and we'll answer those live before we proceed to the next few slides. So we have one question about filing the California 199 form and the 990 PF form through Tax 990. So when you file the 990 PF form with Tax 990 and it's been transmitted and accepted, and then you go back and start the California 199 form, the information from the PF will transfer to the California form. However, if your 990 PF form has not been transmitted, has been rejected, or has not been accepted, that information will not pull over to your California form, because before we can pull it over, we want to ensure that the IRS approves of what you've provided. We want to make sure it's an accepted form and you're providing accurate information on the California form. So if you do need to file both the PF and the California, make sure you do that all in time to meet your deadline, for one, and for two, get the accepted form. So that may mean filing your 990 PF a little bit early, getting that acceptance notice, and then going back and filing your California form all before your deadline. Kingsley has if you could explain your question a little bit better about downloading the 990 form. We do have an option to download a completed document with Tax 990 while you're working on it or once you complete it. If you just want a PDF of the form, you can go to the irs.gov website and just download a PDF of the form, but I'm not sure what specifically you mean on that. Thomas, excuse me, you are correct. So Schedule B is open to public inspection for private foundations. However, some public charities aren't required to make Schedule B open to public inspection. So there is a difference between that if you're filing the 990 PF or if you're a public charity filing one of the other 990 series forms. A private foundation is required to make Schedule B available to public inspection. Gail, you'll need to confirm with an accountant if interest needs to be reported on Schedule B. Schedule B is meant for contributions of $5,000 or more. But you, like I said, you'd want to confirm with an accountant on reporting your interest information. Okay, so the questions have slowed down quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed with our next couple of slides here, where we're going to talk a little bit more about deadlines to file and filing with Tax 990. As I mentioned, the IRS mandated e-filing, so you are required to use an e-file provider to complete and transmit your returns. We do have a question from Susie about filing electronically without a cost. Since the IRS mandated e-filing and they don't make the form available on their website for electronic filing, like I said, you're required to use an e-file provider, which means you're required to pay for a service to e-file the forms. If you have questions on our prices at Tax 990, you can go to tax990.com/pricing and view our per form pricing. But we're going to jump into some of the features and the process with Tax 990, and then we'll have another Q&A towards the end if you have follow-up questions. So your 990 series return deadline is based on your organization's tax year. Your annual 990 series return must be filed by the 15th day of the 5th month following the end of the organization's tax year. Right now, we're focusing on the November 15th deadline, but if the 15th of the month falls on a weekend or federal holiday, the deadline is moved to the next business day. Most organizations have either a calendar tax year that runs from January 1st through December 31st, or a fiscal tax year that runs from July 1st to June 30th. However, a fiscal tax year can be any 12-month time frame other than January 1st through December 31st. If you're short on time and you're concerned you won't be able to complete the return on or prior to the deadline, you can file an 8868 extension form to apply for a 6-month deadline extension. If you do have a November 15th deadline, we highly suggest you get started on that now to give yourself plenty of time. The reason we're focusing so strongly on November 15th is because, as mentioned, it's a very common tax year for the July 1st through June 30th fiscal tax year. Their deadline is the 15th. And the other most common tax year for January through December, if they filed an extension form in May, their new deadline is November 15th. So it's a very busy tax period right now for the November 15th deadline. I will mention we get a lot of questions about the 8868 extension form. Things like, do you need an excuse to file an extension? No, you do not need an excuse to file an extension. As long as you file your extension on or before your original deadline, it doesn't need a reason behind it. You can only file one extension per tax year. You cannot file an extension and then when that extension deadline comes up, file another extension. So if you file an extension in November, your new deadline will be May 15th. At that point, you would have to file the actual form. So it's one extension per tax year, and it does have to be filed on or before the deadline. So as I mentioned, filing with Tax 990, we are a market-leading IRS authorized e-file provider. Tax 990 has over a decade of experience e-filing tax forms. When you file with Tax 990, we have excellent live customer support, very competitive pricing and features, and options to file for previous tax years. So since the IRS has mandated e-filing, Tax 990 is your solution for electronically filing your annual 990 returns. If you have questions on setting up an account, logging into your account, navigating once you get into your account, any of those things, please give us a call. We're happy to assist you with those things. In addition to Tax 990, we also have several other sister companies that work with different tax forms, such as Tax Bandits, who focuses on payroll forms. So if you pay any kind of employees, if you have any W-2 employees on your payroll, or if you have contract employees, such as coming in and having work done that are not your payroll, but you had to pay them anyways, any kind of independent contractors, Tax Bandits does e-filing for W-2s and 1099 forms. If you pay benefits to your employees or your members, ACA-wise, it's for the Affordable Care Act forms, and then Express Extension, if you have to do personal taxes or anything like that, Express Extension has e-filing for some of those forms. And again, if you have questions on any of those, each product has their own support team, and you can reach out to Tax 990 for more information on any of those or for a contact. Now that we've reviewed the different 990 PF qualifications and some of the IRS guidelines, we're going to discuss some of the key features that Tax 990 offers to further assist you in your e-filing process. So Tax 990 performs an internal audit after you've completed the return. This verifies that the requirements from the IRS form instructions have been met. The audit helps verify that your calculations are accurate and the necessary schedules are generated and fully completed. As mentioned earlier, we provide the auto calculations to remove the guesswork from filing by calculating several areas of the return. For example, when you input all your different categories of revenue, the total revenue will be calculated accordingly. We also provide the acceptance and rejection information. So in the case that your return is rejected by the IRS, Tax 990 provides the reason for the IRS rejection and allows you to resolve and retransmit the return at no additional cost. For example, if the IRS rejects your return because the tax year provided does not match what the IRS has in their database, you'll be able to edit the information on the return and retransmit it. Also, as mentioned, if you indicate that you are a private operating foundation and the IRS says, no, you're not, you're a non-operating foundation, you can edit that and retransmit your form. It's also important to know when the return is accepted. So once the IRS provides a status update, you'll receive an email with the acceptance notice. The IRS acceptance letter will be available in your account for your records and will also have a submission ID number. The submission ID number is handy if you ever have to contact the IRS. You can provide that submission ID number and they can pull up that record for you. When you file from year to year with Tax 990, a lot of the information remains the same. So we provide the ability to transfer information directly from a prior year. When filing consecutive years, the organization information, public charity status, books are in the care of details, Schedule B contributor names and addresses, list of officers, prior year revenue expenses can all be transferred to the current year return. But that is an optional feature, and the information can be changed once the transfer is made, so it leaves it very customizable for you. Schedules are automatically included. If you're filing the 990 PF form and you don't indicate that Schedule B is not required, we will automatically generate Schedule B for you to complete. Based on your responses, the necessary sections of Schedule B will generate as well. So there's multiple areas of Schedule B for you to complete. If you indicate that it is all your contributions are cash and payroll, then no further information will generate on Schedule B for you to complete. If you indicate that the contribution is non-cash, then page 3 of Schedule B will generate for you to further explain the non-cash contribution, but it is only based off the information you provide. Additionally, the audit will catch any missing information on Schedule B. Whether you assist in the filing process for multiple organizations or only filing for one organization, you can manage all the details in all the organizations from the same Tax 990 account. So your organization information saves in the account, and when it comes time to file each year, you just choose which organization you're filing for, and the name, EIN, address, and principal officer information will auto-generate. We do get a lot of questions about the signature portion of the return when e-filing. If you're filing on behalf of your organization, a physical signature is not required. You'll just need to provide the name and title of the individual preparing the return, but you will not need to sign the form. If you're filing as a paid preparer, you will be able to complete the 8453 TE signature page, and your client will be able to electronically sign that. Filing a 990 PF form can be a really long process. There are several pages. So when you file the return with Tax 990, you can come and go as you please, and the information you enter is saved automatically. So you can start it today and pick up in a week. You can gather the information and come back to it, and you'll pick up right where you left off. And since we offer a cloud-based program, you can access your account from anywhere at any time. So if you start it, at work today and you need to pick it up at home later, or you need to share it with somebody else, you can do all of those things. It's all cloud-based, and you just access it using an email address and password from any computer. We also understand that most organizations have been paper filing for years and prefer to review the return prior to transmitting or while working through the process. So you will have access to a draft PDF while you're working on the return. And when you finalize and transmit your return, you'll have access to a professional copy for your records. The professional copy will remain in your account, so you can print and download it at any time. So it can be a very quick process based on how much legwork you've already done. If you have all of your documents prepared and your information readily available, all you need to do is add your organization, choose the form, complete the form electronically, review the internal audit. You have the option to share the return, which means if you have organization members that want to take a look at it prior to transmitting it, you can share it electronically. They would just get an email with a extension to the PDF of the form. They can take a look at it. And then when you're ready, you just transmit it to the IRS. Excuse me. We'll do another quick Q&A before we finish up here. So go ahead, take a couple minutes and throw your questions in the chat and I'll answer them. We'll try to get caught up on some of these other ones. Mark, that you are correct. You cannot file it yourself. You cannot paper file it. You cannot go through the IRS to file it. You have to use a third-party recognized IRS authorized e-file provider moving forward to file your 990-PF form. Gail, if your organization is a private foundation, you don't qualify for the 990N. You have to file the 990-PF. If your organization qualifies for a public charity, as mentioned, you're not listed as a private foundation. We have some resources available at tax990.com to determine which form you need to file. You can also give us a call or send us an email and we can help you with that. What time of year is best for tax filing? Kingsley, that's kind of hard to say. It's based on your organization's tax year. We suggest starting the form once your tax year ends. Then you'll give yourself 5 months to prepare everything, complete it, and ensure its accuracy. Like I said a minute ago, like November and May are incredibly busy tax seasons just because they are very popular tax years. If you need help determining what your filing deadline is, you can reach out to us and we're happy to help you with that. Daniel, if you filed with Tax 990 in the past, we can generate a lot of your information onto a current year from the prior year return. If you've never filed with Tax 990, we don't have access to your previously filed records and you would have to complete everything manually. Avita, if you need to file a 1099, please visit Tax Bandits. That's TaxBandits.com. They have electronic filing for the 1099 forms available there. Paul, we will not be taking a look at each individual section of the 990-PF form in this webinar, but we do have some helpful resources on our website at tax990.com on our knowledge base. And if you have specific questions, you can give us a call or shoot us an email and we'd be happy to help provide some guidance there. All right, I think I've gotten to most of your questions. If I didn't, I'm going to review these later and I will follow up with a personal email to you. But they've really slowed down, so I think we'll go ahead and proceed. Again, let me see. Again, if you have specific questions about your organization, please send us an email so we can take a look at it together. And like I said, I'll follow up. If I didn't get to your question today, I will follow up with an email response directly to your question. But we'll go ahead and proceed here. I do want to just a gentle reminder that Tax 990, we offer that live customer support. We're very dedicated and personalized, and we're available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can reach us by phone, chat, and email support. We don't put our clients on hold, so it's not like a several-hour delay. Like when you call us, you connect with somebody. If you don't, you leave a voicemail and we return your call. It's a very quick and simple process. When you need assistance with your return, just go ahead and reach out to us. We're here to help you along the way. But keep in mind, as November 15th deadline approaches, our wait times may be longer, or your callback time may be a little bit longer, but we do not leave at the end of the day until all of our client communication is caught up. So if you gave us a call, we will return it. We promise you that. Go ahead, like I said, go ahead and get started on your 990 return now so that you can get the best live support available in the best time frames. As I mentioned, we have a great knowledge base. We have a blog, we have a YouTube channel, we have, like I said, the knowledge base, which is just question and answers related to commonly asked questions. So please check those out. They break down, all of our resources break down a lot of different pieces of the forms, guidelines, requirements, frequently asked questions, just a lot of really helpful information. So check those out. Both can be accessed from tax990.com. The support link up there will take you directly to any of these resources. We do have a couple other webinars coming up in our educational series. If you guys would like to check those out, we'd love to have you. I know that you guys all attended today to focus on the 990PF form, but if you know anybody that might qualify or has questions on a 990N, we're going to be talking about that, what is that, next week? So you guys, if, like I said, I'm happy to send out an email with a link to that, either of these as well, if you have anybody that might be interested in the 990N form. And then right before our big deadline, we're going to have just a live Q&A. We will go over some very commonly asked questions that we receive here at Tax 990, and then we'll just open it up to live Q&A similar to what we did today, but that'll be the majority of the webinar. So please join those if you'd like. They're both available on our website. I'll also send out emails later in the week to register for those. I think that's about it for today. I will follow up with some of your questions via email before the end of the day. And then, like I said, if you do have any other questions besides what have been posted here, go ahead and shoot us an email, support@tax990.com, or reach out to our phone team. The phone number is listed there. Otherwise, thank you all for attending today. I hope you learned some valuable information. And go ahead, get started on your 990PF. Thanks, guys.